Can I ask you a personal question? Do you write songs or anything?
I don't sing my own songs.
Why?
I just don't feel comfortable.
Why wouldn't you feel comfortable?
Well, because like almost every single person that I've come in contact with in the music industry has told me that my nose is too big and that I won't make it.
It all began with the 1937 original A Star is Born, featuring Janet Gaynor as Esther, who wants to go into movies. She meets Norman, played by Frederick March, by chance, who helps her with out her dream, but not before falling in love with him. The original film, sadly, has been largely forgotten by the sands of time, mainly because it's been remade twice. Yep, twice. First, in 1954 with Judy Garland. This version is the most famous of them because, well, there's a number of reasons. One, it revived Judy Garland's career. It's got James Mason in it as the man who will launch her career again, and it's got a well-respected director at the helm, George Cukor. It is my favorite version and the one I think about whenever I think of A Star is Born. It is 100% worth your time. It was remade again in 1976 with Barbra Streisand. Unlike the other two versions, this one took the story in a completely different direction. For one thing, it's mainly about a woman who doesn't want fame, but rather love. She falls in love with a drugged-out rock star. The format of the story, however, remained the same. Elvis was actually supposed to be in it, but because of numerous reasons, it didn't happen. So Chris Christopherson took the role of a rock star instead. Overall, this movie was okay. I liked it. It was a decent adaptation that was slightly different than the other two. Not much more to say on it. And now, here we are in 2018, and a new version of A Star is Born has been released. It seems like every 15 to 40 years or so, a new version of A Star is Born would be released. But how is this new one? Well, if you've seen any of the other versions, this one, I would say this version is more similar to the Barbra Streisand version, with the idea of a washed-up rock star named Jackson Maine. However, in this one, to its credit, it's more realistic, with the drugs and the drinking, as well as Jackson fearing that he might lose his hearing because he had been doing this for so long. Also, in this version, he's not much of a talker. He has a very gravel voice, and at times, he's not stable. Next is the female lead. In this one, we have Lady Gaga as Allie. She works at a restaurant, sings at a club, and writes songs, but she doesn't sing her own songs because everyone doesn't like her nose, for some reason. This is fine, except this is all we know about them. Sure, we later find out that Jackson had two dead parents and his brother, played by Sam Elliott, took care of him, but that's mainly it. Also, the first meeting between the two characters happens way too early. In the other versions, we at least get to know who they are as people before we find out that the main female lead wants to be famous at something, and then she comes across the main lead, who we later find out is actually famous. But here, their first encounter happens in the first 8 minutes. This means that we barely know who they are as people before they first meet. However, before you get really mad at me, the interactions between the two of them are really well done and are acted very nicely. At least, it appears that they actually do have a connection. And by the end of the movie, you actually feel it. You feel for both of them, and it does work in that regard. My favorite scene is where Allie goes to his concert for the first time, and she has the courage to sing one of her songs on stage, but only after Jackson pretty much just announced it to everybody, including the band. Speaking of the songs are really well done. In the tradition of the 54 and 76 versions, the songs actually do work. Obviously, the songs in this film are similar to the 76 version, but you can tell that there was a lot of passion behind it. The song I like was Shallow, which is a duet by Lady Gaga and Bradley Cooper. And speaking of which, Bradley Cooper is actually really good in the part, and so is Lady Gaga. So once again, the two leads aren't badly casted. They're well casted, actually. Sam Elliott's actually pretty good as the older brother who halfway through the movie pretty much leaves him because he kind of acts like a jerk half the time, and he just can't take it anymore. Oh, and the other cast members, well, there's Andrew Dice Clay, who honestly hasn't done anything good in recent years, or really anything good. Yeah, I pretty much talked about the basics, but honestly, my real issue is pretty much what I want to focus on today. My real issue with this movie is that if you've seen at least one of the other versions, and you know what's going to happen in the story from beginning to end, then why see this one? Why see a new version of a story that has been done better the first 3 times around? I guess in each one, they sort of represent a different time period, that's fine. But is this version doing anything different? Well, there are a couple things. Like I said earlier, they try to make it more realistic. Not just with the whole rock star thing, but also with pop stars. See, Allie just wants to be a performer, but she signs up with some guy who pretty much just tells her that she needs to change her entire image, and she just kind of goes along with it. But that's not really the artist who she wants to be. Again, true to the originals, but I don't know, it just kind of seems a little bit different to me. There were times, however, where the story made me really annoyed. The outline of the story is the same, but still, there were occasions where I was just like, okay, I know it's coming, just get to it already. I couldn't help but think of a Judy Garland version or a Barbra Streisand version. Speaking of which, there is a reason why one version worked more than the other, and that was simply investment. The Judy Garland version is my favorite of the 3 versions, most likely because it is not only similar to the original, but it literally revived a career that was slowly in turmoil. The idea of the storyline to A Star is Born goes like this: the rise of one star and the fall of another. And to this new film's credit, it does follow in the other films' tradition. And I'm sure the original writers, including William Wellman, who is also the director of the first version, would be proud that his story could apply to any time period. However, this version is a bit weaker than the other 3 versions. Each version is different because of what time period they are set in. The 37 version is good for the 30s and 40s, the 54 version is good for the 50s to 60s, and the 76 version is good for the 70s and mostly modern day. Now with a 2018 version, with a whole internet culture and pop scene and everything in between, I don't think you can make A Star is Born anymore. I don't think you can get any more modern than this. This is it. You're done. Overall, oh man, I really want to talk more in detail about this one, but in order for me to do that, I have to say, go watch any of the other versions, and then watch this, and then by the end, you'll probably know what I'm talking about. I could go on and on about the story, the pacing, the characters, and all that, but I don't want to do that because some of you in my audience have never even seen the other versions. I recommend at least checking out the Judy Garland version at least. At least watch that one. Or if you're really hardcore, watch the Judy Garland version, the 76 version, and then come back to this. Or if you really want to go old school, watch the versions in order: 1937, 1954, and 1976. Watch them in order, and then come back here, and then by the end, you'll probably know exactly what I'm talking about. You'll probably know what I'm talking about when I'm saying that I was not in love with this one. I liked it, I thought it was good, I thought the chemistry between Bradley Cooper and Lady Gaga was excellent. I thought that the songs were handled nicely. I thought the idea of making it more realistic was suitable for, well, at least what the movie was trying to get across. But it's not my favorite version. It just isn't. I think I would place this number 3? Or maybe number 2. I'm not really sure. Just know this. I still think it's a good film. I just think it could have been better. That's all I'm gonna say. I guess I'm gonna give it like a 3.5.
We're far from the shallow.